All right. So in today's class, we'll be talking about the speaking assessment for 0510, and it's the same for 0511. As you can see on the screen, right? This is from the 2024 specimen, and these are
Sir,
the welcome to the class, beta. Can you hear me now? As I was saying, these are the assessment cards for the speaking. Now, I'll be showing you two different documents, right? This is the teacher's or examiner's notes. This document is something that the examiner for the speaking assessment will have, and it has various assessments A to F, right? And topics and questions that they'll be asking you. Part of the assessment is the short talk, which is the second part of the speaking, right? And that is when they will give you a card with a topic and a question. So that's what you will get, right? Nothing before and nothing after. So for example, right, card A you will get, and it will say it's about a school trip. Your teacher is planning a school trip and has given your class the following two options: a visit to a museum or a visit to a sports and activity center. Compare the two options and say which one you would prefer and why. Now, how do we attempt this? I'll tell you later when we get there. But this is the only thing that you will get, and only for the duration of this part of the assessment. Otherwise, you will be asked questions by the examiner and you will be responding in speech, obviously, because it's a speaking assessment. You are not allowed to have a pencil, paper, or any device with you, no making notes, so it's just thinking and talking, right? And that's what makes it slightly challenging. But it's not just the thinking and talking, right? It's how you, the vocabulary you use, your grammar while speaking, and right, how you build up on whatever it is that was asked, right? How you connect ideas, and you just need to keep talking, right? Relevant, not talking about. I mean, if it hasn't been asked, not talking about your pet parrot or your cat or your fish or the biryani you had for lunch, right? If it's not been asked, right? If it is somehow relevant to the question, sure, go ahead and tell the examiner, right? Because the content needs to be relevant, doesn't need to be true. Okay, but I mean, I'm straying a bit, so let's get to this. Now, this particular document is available on websites that have the uh, past papers. It's also available in the drive link that I've shared with you, right? And these instructions are for the examiner, right? Not for you. How to record and what to say. Now, this is obviously relevant to you, right? There'll be a short introduction for about 1 minute. The recording is started, so these things are recorded. And right, the examiner will introduce him or herself, will read out your name and candidate number and center number and all of that, but it is not assessed, obviously. Then there's a warm up where you will be asked a few easy questions to get you into the speaking mode and mood, and relax you into it. This is also not assessed, but you need to be at the top of your game from the start, right? Why? For your own sake, right? It's not assessed, sure, right? So that you are in the examination mode, because you have to keep this up for about 15 minutes max, but 15 minutes straight. So it can be a bit stressful in certain, for certain candidates. So the first part is the interview, which will be for about 2 to 3 minutes, and you'll be asked a few questions on a particular topic. The examiner will read it from the script they have, which is the one I'm showing you right now. You will not have anything to see, and you will respond to those questions on the topic. Then there's a short talk where, right, you will be given a speaking assessment card like the one I showed you over here. Okay, and you will have 1 minute to read the card and prepare your answer. Again, all in your head, no writing material is around. Okay, so no pen, paper, device, nothing. So you're doing it all in your head. So 1 minute to prepare, and then about 2 to 3 minutes to actually talk about it. And then, right, the discussion, which will last for another 3 to 4 minutes, where they will ask you another series of questions based on the short talk, loosely based on the short talk, right? There are going to be some comparative questions, some opinion based questions, and then a question that is, sort of like a, what you would say, a bouncer of sorts, right? If I use a cricket terminology, right? Which is rather different and really like makes you think, okay, what am I going to say about this? So that's there. Then these are instructions for the examiner to get you to say more if they feel that you haven't given enough information, because the more information you give, the more relevant information you give, the better it is for you to be able to score marks. Okay. More information for the examiner. This is the grading. So this is something I shared with you earlier on, right? Levels 1 to 5, level 1 being the lowest, 5 being the highest. And then you are judged on grammar, vocabulary development, and pronunciation, right? A maximum of 10 marks for each, so you are graded out of 40, and your level for each of these can be different. So your grammar can be a level 4, your vocabulary can be a level 3, your development can be a level 5, and your pronunciation can be a level 3. And so all of those combined will give you the speaking mark. Your speaking grade is a number from 1 to 5, 1 being the highest, right? So again, that depends on the threshold for the speaking for that particular session. Achha. So here's speaking assessment A. Now, right, sometimes you may come across a question that maybe you're not comfortable with, or you don't have enough information about. If you're not comfortable with it, there's a way of trying to, deflect it, or you could just make something up. If you have information about it, you could try and attempt it. If there's a question that you've come across, that you're asked, that you do not have information about, again, you can try and deflect it, but the thing that you should be doing is developing your general knowledge. So building your general knowledge. So just have, like, basic information about stuff, about electricity, about water, about conservation, about reading, about study habits and techniques, about food, about travel, about sports, about events, right? And you will come across all sorts of these questions in the speaking assessment. So just have, right, general information so that you can talk about these kinds of things, right? Tourist attraction spots. So right, let's get started. So this is how it's going to be, right? For the introduction, the examiner will go something like this. First, we will start with a short, oh sorry, that's for the warm-up, right? So they will state their name, the candidate's number and name. So I would, if I'm the examiner, I would say that my name is Zishan Mushtaba and I'm the examiner for this speaking assessment. The candidate's name is Afan, for example, and your candidate number that's been given to you by the British Council. And the date is the 15th of September 2025. Welcome to the speaking assessment. And then I will move on to the warm-up. Right? So first we will start with a short warm-up where I will ask you some questions to find out more about it. This part is not assessed. After the warm-up, there are 3 assessed parts of the test: an interview, a short talk, and a discussion. All right, so they'll ask you these, the questions for the warm-up are more or less the same. So this can become tiring, right? The more we practice it, maybe we can skip it sometimes, but they're more or less the same. All right, so in this case, you can see the first question is, can you tell me about your friends? Now, remember, right, do not give short, blunt answers. Yes, no, oh, I have some good friends and that's it. No. Can you tell me about your friends? You tell anything and everything about your friends. And again, it doesn't have to be factual because the examiner is not going to go and check. Right? So you can make up a friend, right? As long as you have something to talk about. All right? As long as you have something to talk about. So the examiner asks, can you tell me about your friends? And this is sort of a response that I would give. Right? So, you know, and this is from my perspective. Just keep in mind, right? So obviously I'm not a school going student. So can you tell me about your friends? Well, I don't have a lot of them, right? I do have acquaintances, people I know from work, right? I'm a teacher, so right, colleagues at school or schools I used to work at, or maybe a few relatives, but I wouldn't be as generous to categorize them as friends, right? That term is used rather loosely for anyone we know, but I feel that friendship is a stronger bond than just being an acquaintance. So I am fortunate to have a few friends, and I would dare say that they are good friends. Right? They really stick up or stand out. They're there for you when you need them. Uh, they understand. I can share things that sometimes I feel I can't even share with my family. So, right, and they're not from school, from my school days, right? The friends I had back then, as it happens, we drifted apart over time. So these are the few colleagues that went beyond being colleagues and became friends. So you can see I gave an right elaborated response to can you tell me about your friends, right? And I could give a different kind of response to this, right? I could, for example, I could same question, a different response. Can you tell me about your friends? Well, they are a close bunch, right? We try to meet up as often as we can, which is not often enough, right? We usually meet up at someone's house after dark. So it's, a meet and greet and dinner. And then it lasts for a few hours, right? Often it goes past midnight. And that's why we tend to have it on Saturdays or so, so that we can actually sleep in the next day and recover from that late night meeting. But yeah, we're all like supportive. We understand. We're all from the teaching community. We're colleagues at school who turned into friends, so we can share our troubles and triumphs. Right, there's like the intellectual type, there's the more serious type, there's the detail oriented, there's the quirky one, the funny one, right? And so we have a mix, right? And our ages also vary. Like there are few that are around nearing 40, but then we've got some who are nearing 50, some who are still in their early 30s or late 20s. And the age doesn't really matter, obviously, because we're all adults in the professional field, and right, we're just people. So right, you noticed I gave a very different response, right? It's a very different response. And so you're not limited to the kind of response you give as long as it's about the friends, right? So it's relevant. Now, right, because the warm up is just for 1 to 2 minutes, my response is rather elaborate. It's pretty long, right? The response is more than a minute long, and you can see that there are about 3 questions. Now, because it's the warm up and it's not assessed, the examiner might let you go, or they might interrupt you and ask you the next question. Okay, so you don't stop on your own. You try not to stop on your own, right? You just try to keep talking. Use good vocabulary, good development, good grammatical structure, and when the examiner feels like it, they will interrupt you and stop you, and that's not a bad thing, right? So don't feel that if the examiner stopped you, something went wrong. No, they have to proceed with the test, right? They have to complete this in 15 minutes max, and so they are limited by time. Okay, so the next question, right? What would you like to do when you finish school? So, right, assuming I'm a student. Well, uh, I've always dreamt about running a business, right? So maybe when I don't have the burden responsibility on me for running the house, for being the breadwinner, a family to support, and so I might try my hand at freelancing. A job isn't something I'm looking forward to. It's not to my temperament. uh, I do have a few ideas now. Whether they'll work out or not, only time will tell. Obviously, I've done a bit of research on a few things, uh, and I need to gain the experience. Hopefully I'll find some experienced seniors in the field who'd be willing to guide me or take me under their wing, help me grow. But yeah, right. I do hope I can, even if it's a small one, I do hope I can establish my own business and be an entrepreneur. And in turn, maybe down the line or whenever possible, I can also help my community and also, uh, you know, offer jobs, right? So maybe I become an employer instead of an employee. Now, this I said, right? This response was as a student who, what would they would do when they finish, right? So they're looking to start a business, right? What kind of music do you like? So you respond that way, right? This is a question that maybe, right? I don't have a particular taste in music, so I would try to deflect this question, right? And the question is, well, how do you try to deflect it? Uh, so this is one way you can do it, right? What kind of music do you like? Now, right? I don't generally listen to music, so I can respond to this. Well, I don't have any particular taste or liking for any genre of music. In fact, to be very honest, I don't listen to music that much or at all. Right? It's been quite some time since I've heard anything, and this might come off as very odd, but I find music annoying. Right? It gives me a headache, all those tunes and beats and everything. Now, I know there are many different kinds and the calm, slow music as well, but it's not something that I'm generally inclined to, and I never really explored that. And I'm doing quite well without it. Right? I know people say that music is food for the soul, and that's all well and good, right? I don't mean to contest that, but it's just something that I've learned is not quite for me. And you see how I deflected that. So I didn't talk about the kind of music I like. I talked about the fact that I don't listen to music and I don't like it. Right? So I deflected that question. I pushed it away. And obviously that is a technique that you need to, if there's a question of the sort that you're not comfortable with asking. Okay. Just a minute. Right. So that was the warm up. Now comes the real thing, the interview. Right? So the examiner will go, the first assessed part of the test is an interview. I'm going to ask you some questions about where you live. So they'll give you a topic, and the questions will be more or less, relevant to that topic. Try to say as much as you can for each question. Before we start, do you have any questions? Or so you've got some query or something that's bothering you. Hopefully that won't be the case. But right, you say no, it's all good, or it's fine, or please continue, something like that, and they will move on to asking you the questions. Can you tell me about the town or village where you live? And here's my response. I live in the city of Karachi, which is a coastal city in Pakistan and a business hub. Right? So all sorts of people from all over the country come here to, establish a business or, have, develop business ties at least. It's a pretty crowded city. The area where I live is GECHS, or the Pakistan Employees Cooperative Housing Society. It's a pretty old society, one of the earliest housing societies of Karachi. And it used to be quite a, you know, well-maintained area, but that recently it's rather deteriorated, so that's upsetting. Uh, but it's sort of the center of the city, so everything is within reach. Assuming you can reach it, right? Because going there by road or any other method is rather difficult. Everything seems very far away because of the poor infrastructure. But still, it's the city center. Everything's within reach. So whether it's a supermarket or going for clothes or toys, or you're looking for some skilled help like an electrician or a plumber, right? So you can find everything nearby mostly, right? Unless you're looking for something specific, then you have to go a bit further away, right? And you can develop that further. You can give more information, right? So this is about the town or village. Now, why they've given town or village? Why not city? But you can respond that I live in so and so city in so and so area, right? It's like this, it's like that. It has this, for example, you've got a park nearby, you've got a movie theater nearby, you've got a famous shopping mall nearby, right? The kind of people over there, is it crowded? Is it not? Right? What kind of life is there? So any relevant information about where you live, right? The city. Okay. The next question: what can you do in your free time in your area? Uh, right. So obviously it depends, and if you don't really have anything close by, then you could either say there's nothing close by and that you go to a different area during your free time, or you hang out with friends or whatever it is, or right, you make something up, right? So for example, I right, my response to this would be, what can you do in your free time in your area? Well, I don't have a lot of options, but there are a few parks nearby, two or three that I could possibly visit in the evenings. Right, that's normally when I'm free, and right, they're nice open spaces with grass and a jogging track and trees, and so you can take the kids there to play or just run around. You can sit there in the open air, the fresh air. It's relaxing, it's green, so it's very calming. Uh, there's also a sports facility. It's a private facility, but you can go there, try out something like badminton or table tennis or basketball, uh, or you could go to the gym. There are a few gyms in the area, and so a workout is always nice. And there are a lot of tea shops and cafes. So if that's something that's on the menu, then you can always go and have some snacks and tea and meet up with friends and chat. Now you notice my response for this was, my tone was slower, and so your response doesn't always need to be fast, right? It's trying to cram in a lot of information. That's not how it needs to be. Your tone can be slow, but you don't get stuck, you don't fall quiet for too long. And the advantage of speaking a bit slow is that it gives you time to think and process and continue talking, rather than when you're speaking fast, and then you get stuck, and then you stop for a few seconds, right? That doesn't give a good impression. Also, I think that that's what's been happening with me, perhaps. Right, try not to have a monotone, right? They're just speaking in a single tone. It gets boring. So natural speech is where your pitch gets high, your pitch gets low, you speak fast, you speak slow, right? You try to put emphasis on something, you get excited, so your voice raises, right? So those kind of variations in your speaking should come naturally, right? And though that is something that is picked up, it is graded. So your intonation, as it's called, right? How your tone and voice and pitch vary as you speak. Okay. The third question: do you think it is healthier to live in a town or the country? Why or why not? Now, in a question like this, what you need to do is you need to talk about both. So living in a town and living in a country, and this is where the general knowledge that I talked about comes in, right? You need to know what it's like to live in a town or a city, and what it's like to live in the countryside. And then you take preference for one, or you talk about not wanting to live in the other, and why is that, right? Why would you prefer the town, for example, and why not the country? So give reasons, right? So what it's like in terms of health, because that's what they're asking, and then reasons for why you think that is. So a response for this could be, right, do you think it's healthier to live in a town or the country? Why or why not? So we could start with, well, I don't have as much experience about living in the country, but I've heard that the air is fresh, there's a lot less pollution, the food is more natural, right? Perhaps sourced from the farms that of that area directly. So, right, less processed foods because they're not those big brands and cafes and restaurants in the countryside. And obviously, we have to work, do physical labors, right? If you're on a farm or a field, or any other sort of engagement that is part of country life. And so, just that fact that we're physically engaged is, I believe, healthier than town life, and the fresh air and the less pollution, less traffic. So it's not just air pollution, water pollution, noise pollution, right? It's less crowded, right? So overall, I believe that's healthier as compared to a town where there's a lot of traffic. It's very congested. There's a lot of air pollution. There's easy access to processed foods. Not as many avenues to maintain your health, maybe going out for a walk or a jog or going to the gym, but not, engaging in type of physical activity that you would in everyday life, because most jobs are office jobs. So 9 to 5, you're just sitting at a desk, and that's rather unhealthy. So I do believe, I feel, although I don't have experience, right? So I feel that country life would be healthy. And so you can see I just worked over here on an assumption, right? Again, it's not actually necessary that country life is actually healthy in reality. Possibly is, but not necessary. But I just made, again, right, the examiner is not going to judge you for how factually correct your response is. So you're speaking, so they're focusing on the elements of speaking. That was part one. Now this is where we, come to the short talk and the card that you will get. So the examiner will say this to you. The second assessment of the test is a short talk. I will give you a card and you will have 1 minute to read it and think about what you want to say. You should talk about the points on the card. You can't make any written notes, but you can ask me if there's anything you do not understand. You may keep the card until the end of the short talk. Here's your card. And so they'll hand you either a paper, or maybe this might be cut, right? If they have all this printed, then they'll just hand you the whole paper with just these few lines written on it. And they will start a timer for 1 minute, which will include you reading this question and coming up with a response. And for this particular type of question, right, it says compare the two options. Now, whether they use the word compare or not, that is exactly what you have to do, because in some cases, right, they won't be using the word compare. Right, so it's like discuss the advantages. So this is the second one, right, for assessment B. Discuss the advantages and disadvantages of each option, right, or compare the two options. Again, discuss the advantages and disadvantages, or discuss how easy or difficult these options would be for you, right? So however it's phrased, the point is that the options given in the 2 bullet points, you have to discuss both of them, and after discussing both of them, you have to mention which one you prefer and why that is your preference, right? So you need to reason it out. So this is the question given to me. I've been given 1 minute to prepare for it, and then it's time for me to speak, right? So this is the kind of response that can be given, right? So your teacher's planning a school trip and has given your class the following options: a visit to the museum or visit to the sports and activity center. Compare the two options and say which one you prefer. Why not? You could take this many different ways, many different ways, right? X number of ways. So this is one approach. Well, those are very enticing options, both of them. Uh, being a teenager, a sports and activity center is something that would instantly, be attractive to me. We're always full of energy, and teachers know very well the ruckus that we create in class. Right, we're never sitting still. We're always making noise and moving about, and perhaps sometimes even throwing stuff across the class. And so maybe going to a sports and activity center would really help, utilize some of their energy and drain us out, right? And something that we would appreciate. That being said, right, the school does have very good sporting facilities on campus. So unless the activity center has something unique to offer, it's not it is not an option that I would want to go for, because we get that a number of times a week, right? Sometimes every day. So it would be the same old, right? I'd rather stay in school on campus and engage in sports. Now, visit to a museum, right? The question is, what kind of museum? Would it be like a comic book museum, or something, a wax museum, perhaps something more interesting? Then I'd definitely be up for it, right? It would be fun. It would be informative, engaging, and we can really invest ourselves in something like that. It would be more relevant to us as teenagers. It could be more educational. It could be an archaeological museum or a art museum. Sounds boring, but I've never been to one, so I can't really say. Perhaps it could help us in academics, and perhaps it might just turn out to be more interesting than I'd assume at the moment. Right? As I said, I've never been to one, so I don't even know what to expect. But yeah, perhaps the museum one would be the better option. That's the one I would prefer, for the reasons I've already given. I don't know how long that was. It should be about 2 minutes at least. You can keep on going, right? So, for example, you can add to this. A relative of mine recently visited an exhibition at a museum. It was a paleontology museum, so basically, dinosaurs, and they were quite thrilled about it. There's another museum in town. It's an exhibition, a visiting exhibition about the human body. Body Works, I believe it's called. So that sounds really interesting. They've got actual cadavers, those dead bodies. They skinned them to expose the muscles and whatnot. And so, right, I mean, I've heard positive reviews. So it really depends on the kind of museum you're going to, right? These are the kinds, looking at dinosaur skeletons, those massive creatures towering above you, and learning about them, imagining how it would be, looking at the human body from inside, actual bodies. It's kind of scary as well. It's intimidating. I don't know how I'd respond when I see that up close, but yeah, definitely something I'd be up for. And you can see, right, I talked about museums. I talked about my relative going to the museum, and the kind of museum they went to and the exhibition. So you just keep on you keep on developing your talk and keep on giving relevant information. There is a question. Okay. All right, so after that, the examiner will take the card back, as you can see in the script here. Thank you, can I have the card back, please? Now let's move on to part 3. And this is called the discussion. It will last for 3 to 4 minutes. It will ask you a few more questions loosely linked to the topic of the short talk. And the examiner will say, now I'm going to ask you a few questions related to the topic you just talked about. This part of the test will last approximately 3 minutes. Before we start, do you have any questions? Oh, by the way, right, before you start talking in part 2, right, the examiner will say, right, I will stop you after 2 minutes, but do not worry if you've not finished your talk. Right, so the same thing. The fact that the examiner is stopping you is not a bad thing. It's just because they have limited time, right? So they can't sit there for half an hour with you and just keep on going, because there's a lot of candidates to go through. So yeah. So now the discussion. First question: do you think students should be involved in planning a school trip? Right? And again, you give as much information as possible. So a response could be, I do believe the students should be involved in the sense that suggestions could be taken, or a poll perhaps, right? Poll could be done after suggestions, so we get to know the kind of places students would like to visit, and then narrowing those down, there could be a poll to decide where they would want to go, something that's feasible for the school, the kind of activities they want to engage in, so that's obviously part of the planning. So maybe we're going to a park, right, that an amusement park, so there are obviously rides, maybe there's certain paid attractions that the students are interested in that are not included in the package that you would be going for, or maybe you're going to a nature reserve, for example, if that's the kind of school trip, and so what they're expecting to look at, or maybe there's a place they want to stop over at, even if they have a certain preference for the kind of lunch they want. Now, obviously, it falls on the school management to decide the feasibility of whatever the students suggest, but that would help them feel more involved, right? And obviously, they'd be more inclined to taking part in the school trip that way. So that's the kind of response you give, right? Again, from your perspective, from your knowledge, what you think, try to be as elaborate about it as possible. Next question: parents should join their children on school trips. What do you think? So the response, uh, I feel personally, I feel parents shouldn't be there. I mean, there are obviously people who would argue in favor. It could be an educational experience for the both of them and a moment to bond. But when I'm at school, I'm with my friends, and so it's a very different frame of mind. And I show a side of myself that I don't normally show to my parents at home. I guess that's natural, and so I don't want to feel like I'm being watched or judged for the way I act with my friends. and it would be much more relaxing for me and much more enjoyable for me if the parents weren't there. Okay, so that's my opinion. So a shorter response for that one. The third question: you learn more on a school trip than in the classroom. Do you agree? Well, it's very much possible, right? Hands-on experience, whether it is simply to see something happen or to uh, be involved in something happening. Even a trip to the local factory, right, to see how things are manufactured. For example, a glassworks factory or a furniture factory, right, or a tanning factory, for example, for a geography class or anything else, or a food factory, right? They're manufacturing biscuits or chips or something, and obviously there's going to be an educational side too. So seeing something happen uh, would definitely be more engaging, and if we're even able to engage in certain activities, that would be even better. So it really depends on the kind of school trip and what we're going to gain out of it. Some things obviously we cannot experience in you know the facilities that are available to us, and so those we just have to make do with being in the classroom. Final question: is it a good idea for students to spend a short time in a school abroad? Now you can see this has nothing to do with a school trip, right? So this is the bouncer that I told you about. It's, I mean, I wouldn't say this is even loosely related to the topic, right? But it's there. And so if you reach this part again, right? So the general knowledge, right? Read stuff, read opinions about things, and try to respond as best as possible. Now, obviously, we have time. It's just September, and we're aiming for 2026 summer examination session, and speaking test happens first in April. So we have a number of months to prepare, right? Read up on stuff. So in response to this question, uh, right, I'd like to, certainly like to try it. Uh, Going abroad, it depends on which country, obviously, but engaging with those students, the culture, the language, the school environment, the teaching techniques, all the things I could learn that are also beyond just the academics. Making new friends, learning, or improving on the language that I already know, and you know, perhaps even a bit of tourism if I do get the opportunity. Hopefully, I do, and that would help me broaden my view of the world, my perspective, and that would in turn hopefully have a positive impact on my personality and character building, right? So having international exposure, for, foreign exposure in a good sense, right? So although because we're talking about a short span of time, there's only so much I'd be able to experience, and perhaps those that I'd just be experiencing things as a tourist, and not the kind of life the residents over there experience. So uh, what I gain might not be the full picture or the real picture, but it would definitely be valuable, I believe. So yes, if given the chance, students should spend time in a school abroad. And that is the end of the test. Examiner will say that, right? Thank you. This is the end of the test, end of recording. So that's the kind of responses you have to give. You can see, right? My point of demonstration today was how I tried to elaborate and continue on speaking for as long as I could for each response. Now, for this, there are many channels on YouTube. One that I would recommend is IELTS Advantage, right? So that's IELTS, all capital, IELTS, and then Advantage. And so, right, you can check the speaking tests that they conduct, especially the ones for bands 7, 8, and 9. 9 is the best, obviously. And they even have some videos where they explain the kind of responses that you should be giving, and it's pretty much in line with what I've just explained. Right now, IELTS is obviously a English proficiency test, an international English proficiency test. So the level is right higher than what you would be expected for 0510 or 0511. But the approach is the same, right? So watching those videos will help you develop your speaking, right? So that's something you can definitely go for. And that brings us to the end of today's class. Who do we still have? We have you, Afan. Any questions?
No.
Did you find the demonstration helpful? Hopefully.
Yes. Yes. A lot.
Okay. Right. So I'll see you in class tomorrow, inshallah. And then, I'll have the two of you go through the speaking assessment, and then let's see how we do. Obviously, we're going to build upon that and learn and improve, right? And so there are many speaking assessments that we have on our hands. And so, right, it will be something new for you guys.
Yes.
All right. So I'll see you tomorrow.
Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.